What's up, everybody? I'm Flash. This is One Man's Opinion, the show where we cover just about everything, and today we're talking about Black Phone. Black Phone was a horror movie that came out in 2021, but for whatever reason it didn't hit my radar until sort of the end of last year. So much so that I thought it came out at the end of last year, perhaps around Halloween or something like that, because I didn't know anything about it until, 6 months ago. But I picked it up and I hadn't got around to watching it, and finally just about a week ago, I put it in and watched it, and I've got to tell you, I'm glad that I did. Black Phone is a fantastic horror movie that does an amazing job at pretty much everything that it sets out to do. Now, if you're not familiar with Black Phone, then I would suggest going to watch it before you watch this video. I am going to talk about spoilers a little bit. But watching the movie, if you're a fan of Stephen King, I would say this movie's probably right up your alley. As I was watching it, it just had that Stephen King feel. And I come to find out one of his sons actually wrote the book that it's based on. So that was a pretty cool thing because, I mean, you're watching this movie and you're like, man, this has got Stephen King vibes. But it also has Sinister vibes. If you're a fan of the horror movie Sinister, you're going to find yourself noticing things that definitely kind of call back to Sinister a little bit. And that's not surprising, seeing as Ethan Hawke is the star of Sinister and he's also the antagonist of the film Black Phone. Officer So-and-so also makes a return in this film as Ethan Hawke's brother in the movie Black Phone. So that's all pretty interesting, and I want to say that it's directed by the same dude, but I would have to double check that. Yeah, so I double checked it, and yeah, Scott Derrickson directed both of these films. So a lot of similarities kind of crossing over right there. But aside from the actors and the director, that's pretty well where the similarities end. I will say that there is a shot of the room that the kids are taken to by the grabber, and the wall, the way the rush runs along the wall looks a lot like the cover art for the first Sinister movie. After that point, yeah, the similarities kind of end, and I'm glad for that too. This movie is its own thing and its own standalone film, and it stands on its own very, very well. In my opinion, I think it may actually be a better horror movie than Sinister. Now, that doesn't mean it's scarier than Sinister per se. I think Sinister is the scarier film, but I think that overall, Black Phone is a better movie. Let me just say that I had the opportunity to watch a lot of the behind the scenes for this film as well, and Ethan Hawke and these kids that are in this movie just do a fantastic job, and it looks like they had a great relationship off camera as well. But more to the movie, they are phenomenal. Honestly, I've been one to complain about children actors in the past. I try not to put all the blame on them. I think a child actor can do very well with the right director. But these kids in this movie, I thought really knocked it out of the park. I legitimately believe that they did an incredible job with this film. And Ethan Hawke was great as the villain. You never really see his face uncovered completely. Sometimes you will see it completely hidden by the mask. Sometimes the upper half is hidden and other times the lower half is hidden. There's a brief moment where the mask is removed from his face in the movie, but you still don't get a very good look at him at that point. But even acting behind the mask, I think it gives Ethan a chance to be sort of flamboyant and a little bit theatrical in the way he presents this villain, and it really works. You really get the feeling that this guy has been sort of outcast from society a little bit of a guy who never really fit in, and he's gone down a very dark path. And that's another thing that I quite like about the movie. They leave the grabber very ambiguous. You don't know why he's doing what he's doing. You have no reason for motive or anything like that. There are certainly things that you could speculate on. He doesn't appear to have had a good relationship with his father. There's a lot of things that you get little snippets of that may influence him to be who he is, but for whatever reason, he is certainly very unhinged and delights in kidnapping and then murdering these innocent children. And that is essentially the premise of the film. When our young main character gets kidnapped from him, he begins to get phone calls from the previous children, the original 5 kids that were kidnapped by the grabber. And as he has these conversations with the kids, they're helping him try to escape, they're helping him try to survive, and they're helping him fight back. And that's what the movie's about. Now, the movie is light on scares, but every now and again you do get one, and I've got to say the practical effects of the movie are quite good. The kids always look really, really good, especially the ones in their makeup, post-mortem. And I'm glad that they decided to stick with practical effects. It's my opinion that practical effects are almost always better, especially for horror movies, than CGI is. I know CGI can be necessary at times, but I've always been a fan of practical effects. Yeah, top to bottom, though, the movie is it's really, really good. It's well acted. You can tell that the cast are invested in what's going on. They're comfortable with one another, and it makes for a great atmosphere for the film. It's not going to be the scariest movie you ever watch. There are enough scares to keep it afloat, and I think given the narrative and what the story is, I think the scares are appropriate when they come, and I think that they're spaced out well enough that you're not going to lose interest in the movie if you're watching as a horror movie fan strictly. If you're only there for the scares, I still think there are enough that kind of keep you on your toes. But the narrative of the whole movie really keeps you on your toes. I had never seen it, neither had my fiance, and both of us were on the edge of our seat watching this one, trying to figure out what would come next, trying to figure out what we could about the killer. My fiance had a theory that it was more than one person because the masks kept changing and he appeared to have maybe split personality. One moment he might act a certain way and in another moment he'd act another way. And so there were a lot of fun theories. Of course, it all boils down to just being Ethan Hawke at the end, but we had a blast trying to figure out where it would go next, what his motivations were, talking about the kids and how they were killed and, just who they were before they died. Everything comes together. I think that at the very beginning of the film, if I were to nitpick and try to look for some things that I wasn't crazy about, at the very beginning of the film, it feels a tad rushed. It seems like you jump around from scene to scene. It's trying to set this narrative as quickly as possible so that he can get into the place where he's been kidnapped and he's being held, because that's where the movie really takes place. That's the main set for all the action that's really going to take place in the movie. And so I do feel that it felt a bit rushed at the beginning at times, but other than that, I think everything landed really, really well. The little girl who plays our main character's sister, and you'll have to forgive me, I've only seen the movie once, and I can't recall everyone's name off the top of my head, but that little girl I thought was really, really good, and in most scenes that she was in, I felt like she stole the show. She was just a super enjoyable character and a super enjoyable actress, and I thought she really held her weight in there really, really well and executed on a very high level. All in all, I got to say Black Phone was a good time. It's a good scary movie, and I think it's one that really holds the audience's attention well, and it's pretty unique, actually, which is something that's hard to say. As time goes by, horror movies, there are always other movies to compare them to and say, oh, well, it was very similar to this, very similar to that. Black Phone was pretty well a unique experience and its own thing, and I appreciate that it was set in the past. I think horror movies do better in the past because you don't have to worry about cell phones and things like that. Things were not quite as convenient. And so everything landed. Everything hit just right for me. I thought it was a great movie, and I'm giving Black Phone a 99 out of 100. That's right. Black Phone with the high score on this channel, and I think it's well deserved. The gripes or complaints I had were minimal to non-existent, and I didn't feel like even, with the pacing issue at the beginning, it was enough to really take a point away from the film, because I thought it got where it was going well enough that I didn't lose track of what was going on. And once the movie kind of settles, you find yourself very entangled within the narrative. And so to me, it didn't affect the movie in a negative way all in all. As I was watching it, I thought, okay, it's kind of bouncing around a little bit. Let's settle in here. But then almost as soon as you kind of start to get that feeling, it does settle. So I didn't feel it was enough to take off any points for this one, but let me know what you guys thought about Black Phone in the comments below, because I really, really like this movie, and I was surprised. I thought I would like it, but I wasn't really sure. I thought it would be like, oh yeah, it was a pretty good movie, but I found myself at the end of it being like, wow, that was that was fantastic. Everything from the story that was set up that I know I've touched on a lot to the ending. The ending of the movie was very, very good also, and I like the twist of him having a separate house that he hid the bodies in. So I mean, there was a lot there for me personally that I really enjoyed. So let me know what your thoughts about Black Phone were down in the comments below. I'd be really interested to hear those. Don't forget, I have another review coming out very, very soon on The Last of Us. I'll be giving my thoughts on that show and how it compared to the video game. Still coming with more reactions on the channel, more reviews, Hogwarts playthrough, all that good stuff. It's been a while since I uploaded one of those. There's one of those coming very, very soon. Y'all have a great day, afternoon, night, whatever it is, wherever you are watching this. Thank you for stopping by. This has been One Man's Opinion, and if you disagreed with my take on Black Phone, don't get mad about it. Remember, it's just one man's opinion. Thanks.